to look through the visa guide that we sent out last week, and maybe just kind of for an intro, but we'll go through everything today, and we're going to try to go a little bit fast. There's a lot of information and we want to have time for Q&A at the end. I'm thinking this will be about an hour. We're going to try to stick to around an hour. And I'm also going to start recording. Oh, and Luke started recording, did you? Yes, okay, cool, thank you. Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, so today we're gonna just do a quick intro, talk about dual EU citizens, talk about the consulates, how to do visa appointments and how to apply, talk about the different timeframes, the application, what you'll need, and then the Q&A at the end. Okay, so Luke and I, we quickly introduced ourselves. This is our Teach Abroad team. I'm Lauren, working on the Spain portfolio. Luke, do you want to say hi again, just for anyone who missed?
Sure. Hi there. My name's Luke Beland. I'm the manager for the Teach Abroad team at CIEE. And excited to be working with Lauren and helping to set up the Teach in Spain program for all of you. Yeah, we're a great team, small but mighty, and very happy to be doing this. Let's see, you've got our email address up there on the screen. It's the best place to send questions about Spain, since that's a shared inbox. What else? If you've got questions as we're going through the presentation or at the end, please use the Q&A tool. You can just type those in. Some of them we may hold until later if they're addressed during the presentation. If they're awfully specific, we might just reply privately or ask you to email us or schedule a call. Some of them we'll answer out loud at the end, and some of them we might just type responses so everybody can see. I'll be working on that in the background for part of it, so Lauren and I will take turns presenting and working on Q&A.
Okay, thank you. Okay, quick note too, that we did send out your visa guide, and just recently, actually on like March 8th, the consulates all updated their website. So if you see any maybe broken links, which I think we fixed most of them, just thanks for your patience. They've updated everything recently and told us that they're still in the process of doing that as well. Okay, so today we're talking about the visa, and you need this to enter Spain to be a language and culture assistant. You're going to be applying for a long stay student visa. Some consulates call it a student visa, other consulates call it a language and culture assistant visa. They're pretty much the same, just different titles for that. This visa is actually only valid for 90 days. So if you see the 90-day date over here, don't worry, our team in Madrid will talk to you about getting your residency once you arrive. Okay, if you have an EU passport or a Swiss passport, please let us know. I know some of you have already let us know, and send us a picture of that. If you're going to be entering on that, you don't need to have a visa. Okay, which consulate will you use? These are all the locations of the consulates in the US, and there are 3 consulates in Canada. And you have to apply for your visa using your state ID, driver's license, or a student ID, and it has to be within that jurisdiction. So there's details in your visa guide on where you would apply, but this is just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay, so just as of today, these are the current processes for the consulates. Boston, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and Montreal require you to send in an email request to request an appointment. You shouldn't be making this request before you have all your documents together. So it's too early to do that now. You'll be doing that later this spring. And you are required to go in person to those consulates. For Washington, D.C., Miami, Houston, and Toronto, you'll mail in all of your documents with your visa application. And obviously you have to wait until you have all your documents to do that. Some of them will mail back to you, others will make you go in person. all those details, like I said, they're in your visa guide, and we can always clarify any questions you have about that. For Los Angeles and Ottawa, you have an appointment scheduler, so you'll be using their website to schedule a specific appointment time. So some consulates require you to go in person to apply. Some consulates will let you mail in. Some require you to pick it up in person. Some will mail it back. Some consulates will mention group visa applications. We can't do that with our Teach Abroad, so you do have to apply yourself, either in person or through the mail. Okay, so this is the time frame of when you should be applying for your visa. We have our different programs. The immersion program, they start a little bit earlier because they have the immersion homestay experience, and they'll be submitting their visa application or going in person sometime around late June or early July, so that they can get to Spain in late August. So keep in mind, these are the dates that you should be applying for your visa. For our regular Teach in Spain program, which I think most of our participants are doing, same thing, you'll do late June up until early July, July 12th at the latest, hopefully. And then for our basics program, which starts in late September, you can wait a little bit longer and apply sometime in July, hopefully before July 22nd. We have these dates in place just to make sure that you do get your visa on time. Okay, so what do you need for your visa application? Okay, so every consulate requires these documents. It's the National Visa Application Form. There's instructions at the very end of your visa guide on how to fill this out. And there's a link in your visa guide to this form. Every consulate is $160 visa application fee. They take money orders, so you should use a money order to apply for that. And you need your passport, and you'll have to make copies of everything, so do a copy of your passport page as well. Your driver's license or student ID, depending which one you're using. You don't have to send your driver's license in the mail. You can do copies, but just make sure you do 2 copies. Passport photos, your medical certificate, which we've been kind of discussing scheduling your doctor's appointments already, your background check, and for US citizens, you'll also have to have an apostille with it, your acceptance letter from the Madrid government, proof of insurance, and proof of financial means. So these are all of your main documents that you'll need to submit. And you have that checklist in your visa guide, so just make sure you look at the correct consulate for you and keep track of that checklist. Some additional documents, and this does vary consulate to consulate, as some consulates will require translations for your background check and your medical certificate. Some consulates will require you to have a prepaid return envelope. That's for the consulates that will obviously mail back your visa. Boston in the past has required a supplemental visa application form. It's not currently on their website, so we're just double checking that you need that as well, but you will be applying to Boston in person, so you can always get that in person if need be. For San Francisco and Ottawa, they sometimes will ask for a flight itinerary. This is just like a flight plan of when your intended travel day is, but you should not be purchasing flights before you have your visa. So just make sure that it's a flight itinerary and not actual flight plans, or flight, not a booked ticket. Los Angeles and Chicago will require a disclaimer form also in your visa guide. And make sure you have a copy. So when you submit your application, you'll want to do a photocopy of everything. So it's like you're submitting 2 applications. And then also definitely keep copies for yourself. Okay. Luke, were you going to take over? Was I still doing this?
I'm coming in on 16.
Cool. Okay. I don't know what number we're on, so thanks. Okay. So medical certificate. For the past few weeks, I've been talking about scheduling your doctor's appointment. You'll have to get a certificate of good health from an MD. And we have templates in your visa guide for what this looks like. Some of the consulates require translations, some don't, but just be sure to have that appointment in the time frame on your visa guide just to make sure that it's all set. It can't be, some people are asking me if they can start getting that together now, and it might be too early because it can't be over 90 days when you go and apply for your visa. Okay, so this is a sample of the medical certificate. You'll want the doctor's office letterhead or a business card attached. You'll want to have your name on both of the lines, especially if you're the consulate that requires translations, and then signed by an MD. A stamp looks good, helps, but also a business card or letterhead is fine. Okay. I think, is this 16? Thank you.
Yes. We'll switch roles. I'll talk for a bit about background checks and apostilles. And next slide, please. Okay, so we do have instructions in our visa guide for folks from all the different countries that are eligible for the program, but for the most part, today we're going to talk about US procedures, since that's overwhelmingly where almost all of our participants are coming from. For US candidates, you'll need to get an FBI background check. That's going to be accepted at all consulates. And compared to years past, it's relatively easy to order. It used to be a little harder and take longer. And it's useful to have a standard set of instructions for the whole country. We've got some detailed step-by-step instructions on what to do for the FBI background check, how to order it. The trick is to either apply directly with the FBI using digital fingerprints at a post office location. That's convenient if one of those is close by. I think they're approaching 200 different post offices around the country that have that equipment set up to receive those. If one of those is not convenient to where you are, you can also work with a private company called a channeler, which can receive your fingerprints and order a background check result for you in an expedited way, or at least a normal processing time. And with the channelers, I think you're looking at, maybe 2 to 5 days of processing time. If you have a USPS location, it usually just takes a couple of hours. People tell us that they show up for their appointment, they have their fingerprints taken, and by the time they get home, the results are in their email inbox. So that's the quickest for sure. If that's available, we definitely recommend that. What you want to avoid is having fingerprints taken with ink and then mailing them directly to the FBI. That's going to add at least 2 to 3 weeks to the processing time for this whole thing, which is just not time that you want to tie up with this process. So that's a last resort only. It's okay to use a channeler. You can talk to them about how long it's going to take. If they're giving you assurances that it's fast, you can mail ink fingerprints directly to them. They can sometimes help with that. But you don't want to be mailing ink fingerprints directly to the FBI. That's the biggest contrast here. So if you stick to our background check instructions for the FBI, it'll walk you through it step by step. And of course, we're available to help out with that. Next slide, please. Once you have a background check done, you need to get an apostille for it. I guess that's the slide after this, so we'll get to that in a sec. We've got a window set up for each program of when you should order the background check. And as Lauren mentioned, the reason for that is in theory, these should not be too old at the time you apply for the visa. 90 days is the window that you're looking at. So if your background check is dated April 20th, 3 months from then is the window which you're going to have to use that document. So we've chosen these dates very carefully. We want to make sure that people order these background checks not too soon so that they're still valid when the time comes, but also as soon as possible once that window opens. Moving quickly through the visa process is the best thing you can do to have a smooth experience, to not have a last minute sort of crunch and have things come just before departure, right? So apply early, move quickly, move steadily. That'll give you a margin of error because sooner or later something will go off the rails. Some document will take an extra week to get mailed somewhere. You'll be on a family trip and won't be able to sort of take the next step. So start early, keep moving, and know that you're just sort of buying yourself a good margin of error to deal with inevitably whatever kind of situations may come up. Between starting the process next month in April and actually arriving in Spain this fall. Translations. Some of the consulates, but not all, require background checks to be translated. The best thing to do for this, I think, is to get it apostilled first and then translated after. But that's fine. Our visa guide has these links. So there's some services that we link to, which you can do online. You can just submit a scan of a document and they'll translate it for you. LA is kind of annoying. They have a list of sworn Spanish translators. I don't really know what that means, but you have to use a translator who's on their list. And it's a big list, so you can do a little bit of shopping around there. And we try to keep our ear to the ground as well to see if there's particular recommendations. So if you have a translator on the LA list and they give you a good price or good service, let us know. We'll try to turn that around and share that information with the rest of the group. Another important thing is you'll want to bring a copy of your background check to Spain. The background check result from the FBI is a digital document. It's delivered to you by email. So you can print it out as many times as you like, which is great. You'll need to show a copy to your school just to sort of help them check the box of, okay, this person's cleared to serve in a public school with children. So now we're talking about two different requirements, right? Keep copies of the background check, obviously. Bring a copy to your school, but that's separate from the visa. For the visa, it's also going to need to get an apostille, which we'll look at on the next slide. Cool. So an apostille is a fancy authentication to use a document in another country. If you've never applied for a visa before, you've probably never heard of these, and that's totally fine. I had not heard of them either until I got involved with helping people with visas. Essentially, it's a fancy certificate that goes on top of your background check results and helps to certify that it's not a forgery. So an apostille is not something that comes automatically with your background check. It's an extra step after you get your background check results. For an FBI background check, the apostille comes from the federal government, which is going to be the U.S. Department of State. They have a pretty straightforward application by mail process. So you'll send them $20 fee. I believe it's a money order. They have a request form, which our guide will tell you how to fill out. And you'll need to prepare a self-addressed postage paid return envelope. Priority mail is definitely the way to go. It's like $8, but a lot less likely to get lost, and you can track it. Don't just use like a regular, 50-cent letter envelope. You'll want to have tracking on this so you can see it and have confidence that it's going to reach you promptly. So when the FBI result comes to you, it's a digital document, print it out, and you can immediately turn around and prepare the payment and the request form and then the printout and mail those things to the U.S. Department of State. And the return envelope, that's the other piece. On the next slide, we look, so important note here, we'll say it multiple times probably, but the apostille is going to be attached with a fancy staple to the document it's authenticating. So don't take that staple out. If you do, it's invalid and you have to send it back to get a new apostille certificate. And if you're having somebody take scans of this document or make photocopies for you, make sure they know this as well. Don't take the staple out. That would invalidate the apostille document. All right, next slide, please. So here's an example of what it looks like. On the left, on the right is the FBI background check result. It's going to say a search of the fingerprints provided revealed no arrest data at the FBI. So essentially no result. That's good news. That means you have no criminal history on file. Sometimes people say that, read that and misinterpret it to think that it was a failed search, but that's what you want to see. No prior arrest data. So you can see it sort of has a digital signature from an FBI officer. It's got the FBI seal. It does not have the apostille automatically. So you have to take this, mail it off as we just described to the U.S. Department of State. It'll come back with this yellow cardstock certificate attached with a fancy staple. So on the left is a scan of an actual apostille. You can see we've highlighted that staple. Don't take it out. It's like a weird round grommet thing. If you need to make photocopies, and we definitely recommend making copies just for your records or taking a picture with your smartphone. You can see this person has folded the document over in the corner. So don't detach them. Just fold it over such that you can get a clear photo of whatever document is underneath. That's how the proper way to sort of make a copy or take a scan of that. And next slide, please. Apostille processing time kind of goes up and down with demand and their staffing levels. Last couple of years, it was quite lengthy. I think it was like 12 weeks in 2020 and maybe like 6 or 8 weeks in 2021. It's looking pretty good right now. We're looking at 2 to 3 weeks. It could, stretch out longer than that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of demand, this spring and summer, and it stretches back up to 4 or 5 weeks. But that's fine. We got through it with 12 weeks. We got through it with 8 weeks. We'll do fine with 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. So don't let this stress you out. If you've put tracking on the envelope, to make sure it gets there, and tracking on the envelope so you can see when it comes back, that'll give you peace of mind. And we've factored this into our timeline, so we know that this takes a while. And even if it's a bit slower than what they're advertising right now, that shouldn't delay the timeline for you. And next slide, please. So here's another look at the time frame for background checks and medical certificates. So we're adding another layer to this chart here. As you can see, if you're in the immersion program or our standard Teach in Spain program, those dates are a little earlier. If you're in the Teach in Spain Basics program, which doesn't arrive until late September, those dates are a bit later, just to match up a little bit more closely with what we think is the most likely window when you'll be applying for your visa. So for the background check, Basics folks, May 6th is your starting flag on that. For immersion and regular programs, April 20th is your starting flag on that. We've chosen these dates to line up with the windows shown. Again, as Lauren mentioned, late June for folks who are immersion and regular programs, maybe into early July. And then through the month of July is when Teach in Spain Basics people are most likely going to be applying for their visas. Exact start dates for the programs have not been set yet. We're getting close. We're talking to different hotels and seeing what they've got for availability for our fairly large orientation groups. What you see on the right here is the current estimate for what you can expect for arrival dates for each program. So more details on that coming soon. All right, and for translations, we think that we've got a pretty good situation for translations for the medical check. Consulates got tired of people who were submitting, missing the translation on their visa application. So their newest medical certificate template is bilingual, as Lauren showed you. It's got one place to sign, but it says the same stuff in English and Spanish. That should be okay. You shouldn't have to get that translated as long as your name is in both places on that document, the English and the Spanish version. some consulates want you to translate the background check on the apostille. So we're looking at Boston, Miami, Chicago, Houston, and LA for that. So if you're one of those consulates, you're going to want to get the background check, get the apostille, and then send in scans or careful photos of background check and apostille to a translator to get back an official Spanish language translation of that to meet the requirements for those consulates. It can be done digitally, which is great. You know, you can get it to them instantaneously. They can email it back to you when it's ready. You can print it out and send it to the consulate. It's probably a good idea to have the translator send you both a digital and a hard copy of the certified translation, just in case. But the feedback we've gotten is that the digital ones work fine, and that's going to be a bit faster. The cost, of course, varies by translator. So shop around, and we've got some tips in our visa guide. And as we discover more, we will definitely share them out with folks. Okay, I'm going to hand this back to Lauren, I think, to talk about some other visa materials that you'll be getting from CIEE and from Madrid.
Okay, so you're going to have to wait for 3 different letters. One of them is your digital acceptance letter from the Madrid government. You're going to access this in your online portal, which we're going to talk more about when we do our placements webinar. But this is your official acceptance letter from them. And so I've been in my past few emails talking about making sure that you have your legal first and last name in your portal. Just double check your passport number and your passport details in your portal as well. Make sure there's not a missing number or that it didn't get scrambled, but it's really important to have that for this document. And then also just like your nationality. So just double check your passport details and your legal name in your portal, and that helps this letter get sent to you very smoothly. And you'll print this out and bring it to your visa appointment and definitely make copies. You'll also get letters of proof of health insurance and financial means from CIEE, which covers your part of the visa requirements for insurance and proof of income. So we'll get those to you shortly after your confirmation and placements are given out. So 3 letters total, make copies of everything, and also just keep digital copies for yourself. Okay, so I think we flew through that pretty quickly. I know it was a lot of information. Got some questions answered, but also feel free to put in the Q&A more questions and we can answer. We can go back to any slides too if you want to look at something again. So feel free and we'll be looking at that. Luke, do you want, I think we got a lot of questions answered in real time, but we're ready for more.
Yeah, I see a question here that I know a lot of people are eager to hear about. Let's talk about flights for a sec while more questions come in with the Q&A tool. You should not book a flight to Spain at this time unless you have a passport from an EU country or Switzerland, and you're not going to need a visa. And even then, you probably shouldn't because we haven't set program dates yet. So you should definitely wait to buy a flight until you know what the start date of the program is. And we haven't set that yet. We're still working on it. We're going to get that out to everybody as soon as we can. We strongly recommend that folks not buy a flight until they have heard from the consulate that their visa has been approved and is ready for pickup or is being mailed back to them. If you're feeling good about your visa application and want to buy a flight sooner than that, look at change fees or flight insurance to protect yourself against a last minute delay. Sometimes the consulates get overwhelmed and go slow, and that's outside of everybody's control. So our approach is we recommend that you wait until your visa is approved and then go buy a flight. it's true that you could probably get a cheaper flight if you bought it right now, but there's a pretty good chance it would be for the wrong dates and you'd have to change it, and the flight would be more expensive anyway. Flights will get somewhat more expensive as we get closer to the fall, but they don't keep going up infinitely, right? Eventually, a last minute flight is going to be not all that much worse. So we know that makes some people very anxious. Take a deep breath, relax. There's going to be reasonable flight options, even if you have a sort of a last minute situation.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna see if there is one that we can answer for a lot of people.
Sure.
So I like this
Go ahead,
question.
Lauren.
What do we do now? I can answer that. Just
Okay.
look out for my emails. So every week we'll kind of give you a bit of a to-do list. Like, what can you do now? You should not be getting appointments at the consulate. You should not be, it's too early for appointments. It's too early for a background check. Right now you could be scheduling appointments with your doctor. If you don't have a doctor, you've got to find an MD. That should be, let me see if I can find that slide. I forget which direction. Am I going the wrong way? Yep, I'm going the wrong way. Okay. Here. So you can see like these, the background check dates and doctor's appointment dates. Those are important right now. If you have an EU passport, send us that. If you just renewed your passport, I know some of you were in that process, send us those scans. Trying to think, Luke, what else for right now?
I would say research the instructions for the background check. You don't want to wait until April 20th and then read the instructions and spend 3 or 4 days trying to look around and find a place and calling things and waiting for a call back. You can do a lot with the background check in terms of talking to potential fingerprint sites. What you don't want to do is transmit your fingerprints to the FBI before the window on our chart here. So definitely research background check processes ahead of time. That's something you can be doing now.
And then I'd say just actually, like, when we send out our emails, just read them and see that you're on track. But right now we're really at a good spot where there's not anything like to do today. What other questions do we have?
Here's one I can answer.
Okay.
How long does it take to process a visa? That's a great question. And it varies quite a lot. Some people have gotten their visas back in 2 weeks. Most people have gotten theirs back in 4 or 5. Some people have waited, 6, 7, 8 weeks for a visa to finish processing. 2 people applying side by side at the same consulate might have different processing times. It's a bit of a black box. We can't predict that with any kind of precision. So our whole strategy here is have everybody apply for visa on the early side. And if things go smoothly, people will have their visas well in advance, and that's great. If the visas take 8 weeks to process, if you're sticking to our schedules, you'll still be okay. It would be nice if they were predictable, but they're not. So all we can do is help people and remind people to move early on those, as early as possible. And then we'll come out the other end, either with lots of room to spare or at the last minute, and you'll be able to fly to Spain and join the program. So that's a good question. How long does it take? We'll be talking a lot about that in the next 6 months. Lauren, do you see a question you want to
Yeah,
tackle?
let me see if there's some. Okay, so yeah, back to doctor's appointments. Yes, it's too early right now. Yeah, because it'll be, you need there's certain timelines that the visa, when they're looking at your visa, they don't want documents or paperwork that's too old. What if we are planning to travel in Europe this September? You're going to be going to Spain in September, so maybe email us and we'll talk. Yes, San Francisco does require you to apply in person for the visa, and they bring up a self-addressed envelope and they should mail it back to you.
Here's a question, Lauren, that I'll tackle. So this person has a driver's license under the DC jurisdiction, but they're going to be moving for the summer and they'll be living in a different consulate's jurisdiction. What consulate should they use? And the answer is going to be you'll need to show a copy of your driver's license to the consulate, or a state ID or an unexpired student ID. So if the driver's license is under the DC consulate, you'll be applying at the DC consulate, regardless of whether you're living, in Illinois for the summer or California for the summer. They do enforce jurisdiction, so it's okay to apply at a consulate even if you're far away. DC takes applications by mail. You'll just need to show them a driver's license or student ID or state ID that falls under their jurisdiction. You can see the jurisdiction of each consulate on their website. You can also see an explanation of that in our visa guide. These are great questions, folks. Thanks for asking them. Keep them coming. We've still got a bunch here that some of them we're going to reply to one-on-one, I think, but some of them are helpful to read out to the whole group. What other questions do we have?
I think you probably just answered this a little bit, but if you're using a consulate that does mail in or mail back, they don't care where they mail it back to. They just look at your ID. So if you're visiting family or you're moving, you can have it sent back wherever. I see a question that is, I think I'll answer this correctly if I'm understanding the question, but it's curious about what we will be applying for in country after our visa expires. You'll be getting a TIA residency, which will get you, allow you to stay in Spain through the duration of your contract, and that takes place before your visa expires. So like we said, the visa lasts for 90 days. You'll be talking with our Madrid team in country about that residency. They'll bring it up at orientation and walk you through that process. Oh, I like this question. It's not visa related, so we'll just go away from that for a second, but are there any socials to get to meet others? We'll be putting you guys in a Facebook group when, like, in a few months around the time when you get your placement. So everyone can meet that way. It's for people who are just going through CIEE to teach in Spain this fall. People find roommates that way. People find maybe other language assistants who live in their city or in their state so you guys can have your own meetups. And then at orientation too, you'll be able to meet each other. But it's pretty common that other CIE teachers make friends with a lot of other CIE teachers. Not visa related. Sorry to go off topic. I just like that question. Some questions I think we're going to try to answer as much as we can, but if there's like very specific ones, send us an email because we can look at your teachinspain@cie.org.
Cool. So here's a question I'll read out live to the group. When setting up a doctor's appointment to get the medical forms completed, what kind of appointment should they request? Should it be just a physical from the doctor and having a medical form filled out? So yeah, a standard physical exam is the proper type for this. You can call their office and explain that there's a one-page medical form for a visa that the doctor needs to sign. And again, it should be an MD, a medical doctor, not a nurse practitioner or other types. You can also send them the form ahead of time so they can have a look at it. That's helpful for them, I think, so they kind of know what they're up against. But yeah, the standard physical appointment is what you're looking for. Give them a call, send them the form. If one place says we don't do that, sorry, or we're full, sorry, call somebody else. It doesn't have to be a doctor that you've seen for years and years. Any MD can complete the form. Yeah, we're seeing a couple other questions that are sort of outside of the visa sphere. Stuff about like banking and life in country. So those are great questions. We're going to reserve them for later. We'll be talking some more about that between now and departure. Don't worry.
The visa lasts for it's the 90 days, and then you get your residency, and it lasts for the duration of your contract. And if you are wanting to renew, so some people choose to stay for a second year, they'll discuss that renewal process around February or March of 2023. Oh, this question about the visa as well. Could we extend our stay for about 2 weeks after the teaching program ends? And the answer is yes. Once your visa or your residency expires, you can stay in the Schengen zone for up to 90 days. So that's an area of Europe. You can stay for 90 days, and that should be fine.
I think we're just about at the end of questions, which is great. So hopefully our presentation has been helpful. Hopefully our answers have been helpful. You've got our contact info there on the screen. If you need to, email us to follow up about a really specific situation, we're here to help. Yeah, big picture. You can use this recording, this presentation alongside our big PDF visa guide. You can find an explanation of the medical form in there, links, templates for the medical form. You can find an explanation of the background check, step-by-step stuff for background check, explanation of the apostille, step-by-step on apostille. So that's going to be almost like your Bible for this experience. Keep it close. You can save that link to your phone, to your computer if you need to. Yeah, we'll send out reminders by email, of course. So keep an eye out for our updates or newsletters. And thank you all for attending. Again, if you did have other questions, please go ahead and just email those to us so we can follow up individually. Good luck, hang in there. We'll be in touch soon with more updates.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.